Hey, it's Josh Vergara. What's going on, everybody? Going auto mode, looks like the exposure's doing all right. We're using the vlog monitor so I could use the rear camera of the Sony Xperia PRO-I. I'm going to be vlogging with this thing over the next day or so here at CES 2022, and as you can see, not a whole lot of people. It's pretty nuts. Yeah, that's right. Much of what you're seeing in this video was shot on this Sony Xperia PRO-I. It's one of the most interesting smartphone releases that I have had the pleasure of using in quite some time. I'm mainly just going to put together this vlog though and chime in from time to time with some thoughts, like right now. The first thing that I have to mention here is that the full experience with the PRO-I requires some extra accessories. In order to vlog with this phone for the full day out and about at CES 2022 in Las Vegas, I had to outfit the PRO-I with this vlogging grip and a vlog screen, a second screen that connects via the USB-C port. Say what you will about adding more bits to the kit, once this setup was up and running, the result was one of the best and probably funnest smartphone vlogging experiences I've ever had. Using the main camera hardware for all of your shooting needs makes perfect sense, especially since you have your choice of lenses. This is definitely the way that you want to go with the Xperia PRO-I, simply because the front-facing camera, well, even just this one photo alone will show you it's not really the one you want to be using. So you hit the good sensors, turn on this screen, and you go. And in all honesty, the Xperia PRO-I in this fully decked out vlogging kit is a pretty good smartphone analog to a run and gun situation that I would do pretty often, and that's with the Sony ZV-1. You can even use an external microphone. There's a mic input on the accessory vlog screen, but I didn't use it during my time with the PRO-I. I just stuck to the built-in microphones like I would usually do for most smartphones and smartphone camera tests. After all, you would ideally want to have a setup that you could just throw together pretty quickly and get going. That is certainly possible with the Xperia PRO-I. There's just a whole lot of manual control and extra complications that you have to sort of wade through to get to that experience. But it is possible. Honestly, it might have been one of the coolest things we've seen so far. Sony's really been trying to inject a lot of their other departments, let's say, into the Xperia lineup, which in general is a pretty good idea, but in the case of this camera phone, it's a mixed bag. The camera is always the most contentious part of the Xperia experience because it arguably borrows too heavily from the Alpha lineup, and that could be a good and a bad thing. To put it a little bit bluntly, if you've been following recent Xperia devices, Sony seems to have thrown their hands up when it comes to things like computational photography and HDR video, and instead, they just try to put the best possible hardware in and then give users just full control over it. Is it a philosophy that works? You could say kind of. If you're really into shooting with regular cameras, then you get that same level of control with the PRO-I, with similar results relative to how much smaller the sensors are to those other regular cameras. Now in the PRO-I, Sony did try to put their best foot forward. This main sensor right here compared to the other ones is a 1-inch sensor, which should be a big deal. I mean, it's the same type of buzzword you hear from cameras like Sony's own ZV-1. There is a problem though, as you can obviously tell just by looking at it. Well, the effective glass area of the lens doesn't allow you to use the full 1-inch sensor. You've probably heard a lot about this from my peers by now because it's really a bummer. This is the closest we've gotten to having Sony's point-and-shoot prowess hit the actual Xperia smartphones. To be fair, a smartphone is always a smartphone, and if you're looking for the best camera experience possible, you'll probably be contending with smartphone limitations. If you haven't already noticed from all the vlog portions in this video, clearly if you want, or if I wanted the best results, I would have to stick to the main 24 megapixel sensor because the other two 12 megapixel sensors are smaller, literally smaller than that 1-inch sensor size, and thus they dip in quality. In any case, all of the footage that was shot for this video was done using the new Video Pro mode, easily accessible via this circular button next to the other hardware shutter button. Just hit that button and it goes straight to the mode. This is honestly a highlight of the phone because the Cinema Pro mode that I have wrestled with in other Xperia offerings is just a complicated system. In Cinema Pro, you have to create a project for each shoot, plan every shoot, lock in pretty much every single setting before you hit the shutter button. Sure, it's a cinematographer's workflow, but when it's shrunken down to a small screen like found on a smartphone, it can be more of a chore to actually work with. Video Pro is more akin to Photo Pro, which gives you access to all of the different settings, but you always have the option of just hitting that auto mode up here in the corner That way you just let the app take care of most of the settings and you just have to hit the record button and just do a run and gun situation, like jumping around the Las Vegas Convention Center, which I have been doing in this video. All that manual control is nice to have, but if you're the kind of person to keep the dial on auto on other cameras anyway, well, you get that experience here too. Next day of CES, vlogging with the Pro-I, let's do this. Main sensor, by the way, that's why you have good depth of field in the background, looks really good. Letting it do auto, I'm not going through all of the manual settings a whole lot, just letting you know. One thing you have to keep in mind with a menu system like what Sony is putting on the Pro Video application, or Video Pro application, you gotta keep checking your settings. That last clip that I just showed you of me talking and vlogging and whatnot was being filmed at 120 frames. 120 4K on this thing is very nice, but you gotta constantly be checking, making sure that your settings are where you want them to be. That's one of the problems with having an overly complicated system. In all honesty, I actually like the footage I was getting out of the phone. While things like HDR video are conveniences you enjoy on other smartphones, the raw quality coming out of primarily the 24mm 1-inch-ish sensor is still pretty high. The hardware is sound, it's just weirdly implemented, and Sony isn't really willing to take the reins as far as processing is concerned. You're given all of the control, so it's up to you to make and capture the scene accordingly. Does that sound familiar to you? Well, that's exactly what I mean by Sony taking a little too much inspiration from their other departments, namely the Alpha line. It's not like those bigger cameras have the computational convenience of the Pixel or HDR video like the iPhone. They are dedicated products for their particular use cases. What Sony's trying to do is emulate that same experience in a smartphone, a type of device that is generally expected to be easier to use, and the experience just doesn't translate perfectly. Honestly, that's a bit of a shame because the Xperia Pro-I is a wonderful smartphone in pretty much all other respects. There's so much to work with here. Sony's various forms of inspiration actually succeed in many regards. The OLED screen is great, the audio options are robust, the design is always familiar but functional, and it's still quite pleasing to be honest. So there's so much fun to be had in and out of apps and games on the Pro-I. I really do love Xperia smartphones, but I just have a love-hate relationship with Xperia cameras. They're like an exercise in awesome ideas without perfect execution. I mean, I hope we do get to see a 1-inch sensor implemented fully one day. And I hope that the vlogging kit and the screen become more of a thing because honestly, it made the act of vlogging on a smartphone so much fun. Seriously, Sony, make this system right here, especially this secondary vlog screen, compatible with more devices than just the Pro-I, please. Here's a funny thing. I mean, this is just a product of how the CES is going. Check out this little display here. You have a bunch of these little stickers that you can put on your badge. That way you can signify to people how exactly you want to physically interact with them or not at all.
I don't know. Maybe I should get this and this, and then change it depending on my mood.
So it's
That's crazy.
it's kind of an interesting product.
Right here at CES. There's a whole lot of tech in here though that you definitely should be hearing about. Makes sense at a show like this. And now we put it in a tractor like that. I'm using the Pro-I. I'm at the Sony booth. I should be vlogging this. You have all of your heavy hitters and all of the things that you would want to see. Here we are at the PS5 section, PlayStation with the brand new colors that you can change the faceplates with. Ultimately, the Pro-I is one of those paradoxes. It's one of the most full-featured smartphones out there, but at the same time, it's also one of the most niche, most complicated, and most specific camera phones out there. It caters to a very hardcore audience that actually wants the manual control of their ZV-1s or their A7 IIIs in their smartphone. And don't get me wrong, there is an audience for that. But it's so specific, and true to Sony's nature, they went ahead and made a product just for those people. But in a smartphone that does a ton on top of a mixed bag of camera features, another hurdle when it comes to this Pro-I is its super high price. So it's just pretty hard to recommend this smartphone to more than the most hardcore of Sony and Xperia fans. You can get some really great results from this phone, but if you're really into how a smartphone can capture all of that stuff, chances are you have at least one or two other tools that already do the job pretty well. Sony's approach to their craziest Xperia yet is admirable and hopefully grounds for further exploration, but right now it's a bit like many things I saw at CES. It's a concept that simply needs more time. For more on smartphones like the Xperia Pro-I, even talk about the whole vlogging kit here. Get into the comment sections down below, let me know what you think of this whole setup. Also, drop some likes on this video, sound off that way as well, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. With all that said though, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for watching, please take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.